Okay, we're doing chapter 8. Miguel, to start us off with the prayer.
Abba Yah, hear, O Israel, Yahuwah is your Elohim. Yahuwah, your Elohim, is one. Abba Yah, we just want to say thank you once again to gather in your name, to hear your word, and to just to learn a little bit more of Torah, that we may be able to live it, to carry it out. We're thankful for the teachers today, of the lesson they're bringing, and we just look forward to see what golden nuggets we're going to receive today. We give you thanks in your son's name, Yahushua. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Uh, I want to keep in mind that hopefully we will finish up today. And in terms of Samson, in terms of the old Christian Bible, Sunday school, outside of David and Goliath, this is the story that we heard the most often. But I want us to glean this from the Hebrew perspective, because this is really the last hope of many of us. Because he made it into the Hall of Faith in spite of the fact that he broke every rule in the book, particularly the rules that applied to the Nazarene. But he was redeemed. He was redeemed in the end, and this is testified to both by this story and by the Hebrews, which places him in the Hall of Faith. So let's go through, start at 1 through 3 again, as we ended last week, and glean what we can out of this story. And because basically Samson lays up all of his weaknesses all the way through his life. But then he's redeemed in the end. And exactly where did that redemption come from? All right. Can someone read from verses 1 through 3?
16.
16.
And Samson went to Gaza and saw a prostitute there, and went in to her. The Gazites were told, Samson, come here. So they surrounded the place and waited all night at the gate of the city to ambush him. They kept quiet all night, saying, in the morning when it is light, we will kill him. But Samson lay until midnight. Then at midnight he got up and took hold of the doors of the city gate and the 2 door posts and pulled them up, bar and all. And he put them on his shoulders, and he carried them up to the top of the hill, which is opposite Hebron.
Now, what's Gaza? This is the city Gaza. Can somebody tell me about it?
It is Gaza, a city of the Philistines, located in the extreme southwest of Palestine, close to the Mediterranean.
So it's a Philistine city. What's Samson doing going to a Philistine city?
Going to find a hoe.
That's business.
Check out the women.
He likes those Philistine women.
Right. How many Philistine cities were there?
Good question.
Huh?
Talk about 5 major.
There were 5 Philistine cities. Man, I guess you could say this is like going to Las Vegas, right? In other words, he went there for one purpose,
Right.
Yeah.
because he has this thing about Philistine women. Now let's go through 4 through 9. Oh, we remember we discussed last week how he got out. He was just so strong, and that he just opened the city gates. Because remember, back in these days, when you went into a city at night, the city gates were locked. That was the general rule of all cities back in those days. At night, they're locked. And you're not going in and out of that city. So they figured they had him there. He was in this city, and they were just gonna, as soon as first light, they was gonna all pounce on him and kill him. But at midnight, he basically broke open the city gates and took the city gates. Now, you gotta be talking about 6, 7, 8 tons. And he just carried it up the hill and dumped it. But so let's start with 4 through 9. Somebody wanna take on this task?
I'll continue reading.
Mhm.
After this, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. So the 5 lords of the Philistines came to her and said to her, "Persuade him and see where his great strength lies, and how we may overpower him, so that they may bind him to subdue him. And each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver." So Delilah said to Samson, "Please tell me where your great strength lies, and with what you may be bound and subdued." Samson said to her, "If they bind me with 7 fresh cords that have not been dried, then I will be weak and be like any man." Then the Philistine lords brought her 7 fresh cords that had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now she had men lying in ambush in an inner room, and she said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." And he broke the cords as a string of tow breaks when it touches fire. So his strength was not discovered.
Okay, these are the 5 lords, 5 cities we know that the Philistines had. You might say these are like 5 mayors of the city. Each one of the cities was led by a lord. And they are sitting up in collusion with Delilah to bring down Samson. And each of them promised him 1,100 pieces of silver. This is a lot of money, each one of them. So total would be 55. With that, somebody do the math. 1,100 pieces of silver from each lord. 5,500 pieces of silver. That's a hell of a lot of money in those days.
Yeah,
3,700.
Huh?
Was it 3,700?
No, that's 5 times 11. 55.
Okay. Yeah, 5,500.
5,500. Now this is each one of them promised Delilah, and they sitting down. This is not something they just cooked up. I mean, this is they sitting down doing some serious plotting. And she said herself, man, she's gonna earn some money. She'll probably become the richest Philistine woman in Palestine after this. If you can picture this scene, the 5 of them sitting around, first of all, this is what all we know is just a regular prostitute. And they're figuring out how to bring down the strongest person physically in the Palestine. Person who's already slaughtered hundreds and thousands of them. This is not a light endeavor. This is something Hassan is hatching right now. But just give nothing Madahala or any other type of spy novel. And if they pull this off, they get rid of their biggest enemy. They've already been ruling the Israelites going on 20 years. And they've already how would you call it? They're not desperate, but they see that their continuous ruling of Israel depends on them getting rid of this man.
So then this is similar to Matthew chapter 26, verse 15, where it says, "And said unto them, what will you give me? And I will deliver him unto you." And it says they covenanted with him 30 pieces of silver.
Right.
So this is a similar situation when the Hamashiach was being betrayed.
Mm-hmm. That's you're putting the parallels, you're seeing the parallels. And there was another person that was plotted against. I mean, it's a theme that runs throughout the Bible. It's both the Old Testament, the Torah, Joseph,
Yes.
Daniel, David, although David was more or less his cabinet really plotted against him,
His own son.
his own son.
Yeah.
But his son wouldn't have gotten any place without David's own cabinet. And then Yeshua is the plots. And the weird thing about it, what's the common theme of all of these plots against Yah's anointing? What's the result of all of these plots?
They failed.
Uh,
It failed.
They fail. But they're still there. Now Samson though, look at here, what he took. When you said Samson is playing with Delilah,
Yep.
I mean he knows what's going on, right? He's not that dumb.
Well, he had experience. This is his last wife.
His last wife did the same thing. And he has experience with his Philistine women, and he has experience with the Philistines themselves, how they operate. Because that's what they did with their last wife when they couldn't figure out that riddle he gave. Is they went to his woman, and plotted and schemed with him. Now, one of the things we got to think about as we study the Bible and as we study history is the whole concept of espionage, of spying. Any king or any leader in those days is going to have a spy network. So the minute Samson walks into the city, guess who was the second person who knew he was there? Huh? Which particular person would immediately know that Stanford?
The ruler of the city.
Huh?
The ruler of the city.
The ruler of the city. In other words, Samson wasn't just anybody. They knew he was there as soon as he got there, and they knew where he went. And they, and after he left, they immediately contacted the person he wanted to see. Because no leader worth his salt operated in the blind. They would have spies and agents all over the place, telling them anything of anybody of importance what they were doing. Now, Samson was particularly frustrating to the Philistines, you might ask, as versus the nation of Israel as a whole. For what reason? Finances.
He was killing us.
Hmm?
He was killing us.
He was killing them. He was powerful. But why was he troubling to them more so than the whole nation of Israel?
Well, didn't they have the whole nation of Israel on lock?
Right.
He's the only one that's actually doing something. against
That's you heading there.
He was the judge.
Huh?
He was the judge of Israel.
That's true
Yeah.
too.
He wasn't, he didn't conduct himself in Torah.
Actually, in a weird way, yeah.
troubling to them.
It's it would, because they have all of Israel on lock, and they got this one dude, this one rebel, you would call, I guess you'd call it, whooping their tail, it mess up their reputation. And it'll give rise to other people, the people that they do have oppressed, to stand up and fight.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think it might be.
He was sort of like a Nat Turner or
Mm.
Huey Newton.
Mm.
Even though he wasn't a righteous leader, he was a lousy leader. By example for the Israelite people, they had the Israelites under their thumb, right?
Mhm.
And if the Israelites, say, tried to create an organization, tried to organize to overthrow the Philistines, I keep messing that up. They had spies out. They knew exactly what the Israelites would try to do, as any people oppressing another group of people would know.
Right.
But see, Samson is unpredictable. You don't know what that. Excuse me. You don't know what he's gonna do.
The Hebrews going to do.
And he's operating off on his own.
Right.
Right.
You know, he's not getting together groups to plot to overthrow them. This guy's, his brain is not leading him. But they figure they know his weakness anyway.
Mm.
His weakness is Philistine women. And so they're following him pretty closely. And when they find out that he's bummed on to Delilah, they contact her and they sit down and they plot the overthrow. And so plot number one, the cords, fresh cords that have not dried, and what happens? He just breaks them. Now we zero in on the interaction between Delilah and Samson. So somebody could go through 10 through 12.
And Delilah said unto Samson, Behold, thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Now tell me, I pray thee, wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, If you bind me fast with new ropes that never were occupied, then shall I be weak and be as another man. Delilah therefore took new ropes and bound him wherewith, and said unto him, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson, and there were liars in wait, abiding in the chamber, and he brake them from off his arms like a thread.
So once again, they set the ambush out. They're sitting there waiting, ready to pounce on Samson, but he just goes, "Wah!" and just snaps them. These are the new ropes. So number 2 falls flat. So let's go into 13. Number 3. Somebody do 13 and 14.
And Delilah said unto Samson, Hereto thou hast mocked me, and told me lies. Tell me wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, If thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. And she fastened it with the pin, and said unto him, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awakened out of his sleep and went away with the pen of the beam and with the web. Stop there.
So number 3, yeah. You see, I mean, this pattern, isn't this pattern weird, strange, crazy?
Mhm.
And Samson's playing with her, and she's playing with him, and the Philistines are watching this. This is almost cartoonish.
Mhm.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Not necessarily pertaining to the setup, but what is the importance is there any importance in the 7 locks? And the
What's
number
7? Yeah, that's something to take a look at. What's 7 in biblical terms? What does 7 usually show?
Completion.
Completion, right. And perfection. So no, 7 does mean something. Can anybody give a guess as to what 7 means here? And this is while he's sleeping.
Uh-huh.
7 locks woven into a web, fastening with a pin. Then she said, the Philistines are here. And it means nothing. It doesn't even slow him down.
Right.
So he's not completely bound by these 7 locks, is he? But then this goes back to nagging. Anybody? No, but I'm not going to ask that question.
I'm gonna ask anybody got a nagging wife?
Yeah. Our girlfriend.
Ain't wife and nagging synonymous?
You know this is live, right?
I shouldn't touch that. I shouldn't touch that at all.
Close the door when you say that. Close the door when you say that.
I would say there's some.
We gotta at least stop the camera.
Don't tell my wife I said that.
But
It's not you too.
no, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I've been nagged in my life. And I tell you, it is a terrible predicament to be under. Nothing emasculates you more than to be nagged. That's enough said. Let's keep on. Let's go into 15 to 21, because we're getting to the heart of the matter.
Delilah said to Samson, "How can you say that you love me when your heart isn't mine? You've made fun of me 3 times now, but you still haven't told me what makes you so strong." Every day she made his life miserable with her questions. She pestered him until he wished he were dead. Finally, he told her the truth. He said, he told her, "Because I'm a Nazarite, no one has ever cut the hair on my head. I was dedicated to Elohim before I was born. If my hair is ever shaved off, my strength will leave me. Then I'll be like any other man." When Delilah realized that he had told her everything, she sent a messenger to the Philistine rulers. "Come here once more." She did this because Samson had told her everything. So the Philistine rulers arrived with the money in their hands. Delilah put Samson to sleep on her lap. She called for a man to shave off his 7 braids. Then she began to torture him because his strength had left him. She said, "Samson, the Philistines are attacking." Samson woke up. He thought, "I'll get out of this as usual and shake myself free." He didn't realize that Yahweh had left him. The Philistines grabbed him. They poked out his eyes and took him to prison in Gaza. They tied him up with double chains and made him grind grain in the mill there.
So, what's the greatest sin now that Samson has entered into? It's something that I have seen all my life.
What is his greatest sin?
What's his greatest sin at this point?
reveal the secret.
He turned from Yah.
He fully knew her intent,
Right.
but he allowed his impatience, his anger, to get himself frustrated. He didn't go to Yah, which was already a problem, but he allowed he went to the woman.
Right. What's a word that?
He compromised his mission.
No, no. What's it? Presumption. He presumed upon Yah. That Yah had his back no matter what he did. Presumption.
Mm.
Haven't you seen this before in people? Presumption. I'm Yah's anointed.
I wonder if he would have.
Because he's playing with her. I mean, you know, he ain't dumb now. He knows that she's working for the Philistines. He figured he can play with her. What were you getting ready to say?
I was gonna say, I wonder if he would have told, like, if it was one of his boys, he would have told them. But once again, we see a woman being able to get, something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of talked about this yesterday, but in fellowship, but we saw this because she's doing nothing that's different from Genesis chapter 3, where Eve was able to convince Adam or Kuah to eat the fruit. So we see this in Proverbs, Shlomo, Samson wrote in Proverbs chapter 7, verse 21, it says, with her much fierce speech, she caused him to yield. That word fierce speech is more of a sensual speech.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says, with the flattering of her lips, she forced him. So this is the same perspective that we see here. She just, that's one way of looking at it. We also look at when a woman cries. There's two sides of that process.
Mm-hmm.
One, we talked about a woman's crying for her ish. He's going to yield to her because he wants to soothe her.
Mm-hmm.
It could be positive and it could be negative. So we're seeing the negative side of it right now because this is not a woman that was of Torah. A woman of Torah, when she cries, there's something in there that is going to be told, functional. This situation, he's with a woman that is not following Torah, so her tears, her whining, her crying, it's not something that is dysfunctional, but it has the same power. It causes a man to pay attention and want to soothe that crying. So he says, I'm gonna turn away from Yah. I'm gonna turn to you.
But that's the woman's nature. That's the woman's sin of the woman.
Correct.
What should the man do when faced with this?
Turn to Yah.
In what way? First of all,
Faced with what?
you got this woman, manipulative woman, and what's that? He knows she's manipulating him. I mean, he's been through this before.
But he's arrogant.
And arrogance leads to presumption.
Fault, right?
Right.
Presumption of fault, right?
I mean, first of all, is this really a secret? No, 17, read number 17. Again.
17. Finally, he told her the truth. He told her, because I'm not Nazarite, no one has ever cut the hair on my head. I was dedicated to Elohim before I was born. If my hair is ever shaved off, my strength will leave me. Then I'll be like any other man.
Okay. Now, is this a secret?
No.
Okay. And first of all, did anyone ever tell him if your hair is shaved off, you will then be weak? Where's this at? In the previous place. Where's this at? Is this in the Torah? Isn't him adding?
Yeah, he did that.
Isn't this the same thing as Eve says, if we touch it?
Right.
So therefore,
He's adding to the Torah.
he got y'all mad.
Oh, I don't so much that. But he's adding to the Torah. And Yah's gonna bring this out, but the thing is, he put this on himself.
Right.
Just like Eve put.
So you're saying that if he hadn't made that statement, just cutting his hair wouldn't have made him lose his strength, but because he made that statement?
It's not so much if he hadn't made that statement, it's he added to the Torah. That's the bottom line.
Same as Moshe.
Right.
He added to what y'all.
Right, said.
Yeah.
And he hit the rock instead of speaking to the rock.
Therefore, he had a punishment.
He faced the consequences. This is the thing he put on himself.
Right.
And Yah held him to it. Yah holds you to presumptions when you presume upon his word. Yes?
Those first 3 times that he was fooling Delilah and saying, well, you know, if you do this, if you tie me up with these kind of ropes, I can break them. If you tie, you know, I'll be weak. And this final, the last time, that's the time, like you're saying, where he actually invoked the name of Yahweh.
Yes.
And Nazareth, he invoked
He
the
said,
name of the Nazareth.
I've been dedicated
But
to
he
Yahweh.
added to it.
Right.
Because if it's just him being the Nazareth, why didn't he lose his strength when he ate the thing from the lion? When he ate the
Right,
honey
true.
from the lion?
So, but was this the only thing that he had kept as a Nazarite throughout his life?
Huh?
You say kept.
He hadn't shaven his head.
Yeah, but it
But
was,
he broken every other vow.
Right.
But I'm just asking,
No,
was
no,
it the only
as in-
thing that he had kept?
no, not, I mean, in the sense of, he ate out of the honey out of the lion, so if this was a process of a Nazarite, he should have lost it then.
Mm-hmm.
But he, now, our voice makes perfect, it makes sense. He tested Yah. He was being arrogant.
Well, and I think what Leroy is saying is that not having his haircut, which was part of the Nazarite.
What was the
that he had
Nazarite
kept-
vow?
He had kept that until this moment where he basically
What,
put that
what,
on
what,
the
what,
altar.
but he had not broke, he.
Broken everything else at the.
Right, he broke
broken
all the
everything
other
else.
Nazarites.
Right, well, I'm not saying he
Yeah.
didn't, I'm saying that's the
And he
only
didn't
thing
lose
he
his
didn't break.
strength.
Right.
The only thing he
That was-
didn't break was not cutting his hair.
Yeah, but
So,
And at
then,
that
and
time-
now, he got to the point where he put
Wait a
that,
minute,
he
wait a
even
minute.
put that on the line.
I'm not saying that everything else is void, or this is the,
We're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
yeah,
What are you
I
saying?
just, that's an identifier too, right?
What do you mean?
Your
So
hair.
was it, so was it everything else?
So,
You
yeah.
can't necessarily
You're saying
be
like,
identified as a
who was
Nazarite
that,
because
Neville
you eat
gave us the
honey.
10 Commandments, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna get one of these.
But you can't be identified as a Nazarite.
But-
It's part of his, literally part of his
Well,
identity.
wait a minute, if you sitting at a bar drinking, how you gonna be a Nazarite?
But people would have to see you, right? So he's
Well,
walking with,
Yeah, but I guess the point is, doesn't matter if a Nazarite has 7 locks and somebody that's not a Nazarite has 7
Uh-huh.
locks. You can't see the
True.
difference.
Right.
But
No,
You know
the
someone
vow of
sitting
a
there not
Nazarite,
shaving.
lay it out, what's the vow of a Nazarite?
That's the key part.
Uh-huh.
that's not it, yeah. He
You
wasn't
don't
supposed to-
shave your head,
You don't drink,
you don't drink, you don't even touch liquor,
right? You don't touch carcass,
Uh-huh.
all that stuff, yeah.
right?
Nothing but it's right.
Okay, now, what's the difference between that and shaving your head? That you should lose all your power. Shouldn't you lose all your power when you first take the first drink?
Right.
If that's something that Yah has established?
No, this is really good. This is good.
Shouldn't you lose all your power when you drink that honey from a dead carcass? If Yah has set that as a requirement for you to retain your power?
Mhm. Going against, turn away from his parents. to go
Right,
to
turn
find
away
a
from
way.
his parents, any number of things.
Mhm.
Who established the requirement you would lose your strength?
It appears as he did.
He established
Yeah,
that.
he established it.
What was his real sin?
Presumption, yeah, you're right.
Towards
Presumption added to
The Torah.
the Torah.
Yeah,
That's the essence of his sin.
that's really good.
And Yah holds him to it.
Let's see that.
If you're gonna add to my word, Samson,
You're gonna suffer the consequences.
then you're gonna suffer the consequences of violating the stuff you added to my word.
Wow.
That's the key here. And that's something that we gotta do all the time. That's something man does all the time. We're continuously adding to his word. It's added to his word that led the Pharisees and Sadducees to execute Yeshua. It's adding to his word that helped get us into the fallen thing we're in the first place. Well, it's gonna be deeper than this when if we can, what we at, cause I wanna save about 10 minutes.
We got about 25 minutes.
Okay.
23 for you.
Okay.
Well, don't add to it.
So apparently 13.
Okay. And so,
We're in verse 22.
mhm,
22.
mhm.
Howbeit the hair of his head began to grow again after he was shaven.
Okay. This is he's cut out his eyes and put them in chains and turned them into a grinder. I remember there was a movie, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, his first big movie,
Tell us
where they showed him pushing this. What do you call it?
Conan the
Oh,
Barbarian.
Barbarian. I oftentimes think of this when I see this. He was all by himself at the end, grinding, was it wheat?
I don't remember. It was something.
Probably wheat.
One of the things, let's go back to 18 though. Delilah realized that he had told her everything in his heart. We didn't get into his heart. David, in Hebrew, heart is live. What does heart mean? Give us a good explanation of what the Hebrew concept of heart, when they say it's in his heart.
Let me find something. What is it? Lave?
Laid, yeah, laid.
It says, it's like a guiding toward what's inside, or guiding and something that's inside you, guiding you.
Sort of like your will, huh?
Yeah.
And usually when something like, she knows he's telling the truth now. She knows he done stopped the game they've been playing, because they have been playing a game. And guess what happened? She tells the Philistine, and now they bring the money. They giving the money to her, even though there's been no proof yet. And so she's able to tell him, look, I know what he's telling is true now. This ain't no sham anymore. They done 3 shams. So something key has occurred here too. Now let's go on to 22 through 27.
But Elroy is then there's a clear clarification that the woman that's your ish, your wife, she does, even in a short time period, she has this ability to know a man.
Right. Oh, good, good. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
See-
There's a sense that we don't have, that they have, that God, right?
Yeah, I know.
And there's a weakness that it can be looked upon as a weakness and looked upon as a strength. Because when a man gives up himself to his wife, that's the process of where y'all said this person is supposed to be helping you.
Uh-huh.
So when you give all that to her, and she realizes this, you're giving me all of your strength, so that you can be weak with her. There's two ways this works, and she realized that, and we see the bad side of what happens when you don't have Torah. This is very dangerous, to turn yourself to a woman that does not follow Torah.
When you open your heart to a woman, period, when you open your heart to a woman, you are absolutely weak. We all know that. None of us in here is Superfly.
You went that far.
And I guess we don't want to learn this. I guess this is one thing that we have to admit to ourselves as men, is any one of us, no matter how strong we think we are, can be a Samson. And fall, and if once a woman really got you in a spot where she can nag you, she also have you in a spot where she could control you. And your IQ and your intelligence don't mean nothing. Outside Yeshua, who was the most perfect, strongest man that's ever lived? Hmm?
The most perfect.
And strongest man that's ever lived.
Strongest mentally? Or,
Mentally and physically.
Job?
Job?
Adam. First creation from Yeshua. He had to be perfect, right?
Oh,
One
until.
Noah.
Until.
Yeah.
So the woman came. So the woman came into the picture.
Till the woman came into the picture.
You gave me her. The woman you gave me.
Right. Well, y'all is complaining about well, that's something we always do. We always find an excuse for having messed up, that we blame somebody else. But as strong as Samson was, and Samson was no dummy, that's why I hate the idea of when they depict him as being a dummy. That Delilah just tricked him out and out. He knew what was going on. He was playing her, and she was playing him. But she outlasted him.
Wasn't it his love for Delilah that made it his weakness?
That's exactly what we're saying, yeah.
Wasn't Delilah, she wasn't the only woman though, was she?
Huh?
Was she the only woman? I came in late, I'm sorry. Was she the only one,
No,
only woman?
his first wife had already done this to him.
Yeah, she was the last one.
The last one.
Delilah was the last one. And the first verse in this hints that, where was it? I mean, Delilah wasn't his first Philistine woman.
No.
When we dealt with him going down to Gaza in the first place,
Right, he was
why
going-
else was he going to Gaza,
To,
one of the Philistine cities? Hmm? Why else would he go to Gaza?
have sex.
To chase women? But why go to Gaza? I mean, sure, there was plenty of Hebrew women around. All he had to do is ask his father. He would have gotten him a Hebrew woman in a minute.
He wants to get some of that strange women.
He wanted loose women.
He wanted, Philistine, he wanted, there was loose Israelite women.
I guess it's a flavor for some reason, you don't know.
He wanted Philistine women. That was his But anyway, we probably believing the point, and
Then his other issue.
and we might lead a revolution of women against us when they start seeing this discussion here, so.
Then his other issue was that he knew, right? So first time, second time, moving, and keep going on. At some point, he got arrogant because at some point he could have left.
Right, he could have walked out, just like he left that first city, he
Yeah.
could have, the gates were not keeping him in
Right.
there. But see, by adding to his word, which is what he did, he added to his word. Yah holded to the word that he added.
Right.
Because this was a part of his plan with her. See, he believed that cutting off his hair would take away his strength. Think about that.
That's
What
very
did you say?
good.
Huh?
What did you say?
Did he actually believe that taking
Oh,
away
no,
his
no,
He thought it was
would
another
take away?
trick.
He
Yeah.
thought it was another trick.
Yeah.
He was playing with Torah
Yeah.
when he did that.
No, this is really good.
He was lying on Yah.
Yeah, he brought Yahweh's name into the
Uh-huh.
situation.
That's the presumption.
More voice. You know what you just did? I didn't realize this. You just ruined Rastafari.
Ah,
Right? Just pointed out the whole focus of Rastafarian is they focus on this man. And the here is what they use that as the purpose of their strength. And so most men Rastafarians have 7 locks and so on and so forth. They don't cut their hair because of this particular
Verse.
misunderstanding of this scripture.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I hadn't even known that. I wasn't setting out to ruin him.
You did. That's just good.
I just pointed out
This
the
is
word
good.
in the Bible doesn't say a Nazareth that his strength was connected to his
It
hair.
doesn't.
it doesn't. It doesn't. In verse 20, it makes it clear that he thought that it would just be another one of his tricks.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he says, I'll go out as at other times and shake myself off.
Right.
Right.
Not what happened.
He wasn't expecting to
Expecting
lose
this.
his strength with
No.
his hair.
No.
So how'd that even come up? That his head strength was in his hair?
It doesn't. That's what we said. It's not in the Bible.
He
This
made
is
it up.
something
He
we've
just
been
made it up.
saying. This is something I was taught in Sunday school.
Samson thought it up.
Samson thought it up.
He thought up the cords, and the break off, and
Yeah.
to tie me to a loom, and a little work.
And he figured this would just be another thing. Sure, she cut my hair.
Right.
He didn't think it'd really make a difference because he made it up.
But he invoked Yah's name.
And he
That's
wrote
a key
Yah's
part.
name. It specifically say that.
Right. No, that's-
It's just like Moses. It's just like Adam. I mean, just like Eve. It's adding to the word.
Which is clearly telling us this is going to be our destruction if we continue to follow
Right.
this
Listen,
template.
see, the thing about it, when we add to his word, he holds us to that addition.
You're always gonna fall. That's,
Right.
Or subtract for that.
Uh-huh.
Or subtract, right.
Or subtract. Yeah.
It reminds me of Exodus 2 when he made the covenant with the people, and then the people agreed to it. He says, I'm gonna hold you to it.
Right,
because
he
you
holds
agreed
you to
It's a covenant.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. And when they were committing all those adultery acts, kill them.
Oh, boy. But we're not, I want to connect this to another verse. So, particularly in terms of heart. Okay, 22 through 27. Somebody read that?
Howbeit they hear
10
of
minutes.
his
I
sin
got the sign saying 10 minutes.
began to grow again after he was shaven.
Okay.
Then the lords of the Palestinians gathered them together to offer a great sacrifice unto Dragon, their Elohim, and rejoice, for they said, our Elohim has delivered Shimshon, our enemy, into our hand.
Stop right there. Did that guy turn Samson into their hands?
No.
Negative.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, It was funny because when I seen Dagon or his name here, the second Conan movie,
Uh-huh.
that was the deity that they was trying to raise from the dead in that
that's
movie.
true.
Oh, that's the-
really-
okay.
I forgot about that.
That's cool.
Well, we're gonna get into Samson. We're gonna see what happens when Dagon and Yahweh face off. Keep going.
And when the people saw him, they praised their Elohim for it. They said, our Elohim has delivered into our hands our enemy, the destroyer of our country, which slew many of us. And it came to pass when their hearts were merry, and they said, call for Shimshon, that he may make us sport. And they called for Shimshon out of the prison, and he made them sport, and they set him between the pillars. He said, stop there one more.
27.
27, sorry.
26 and 27.
And Shimshon said unto the lad that held him by the hand, suffer me that I may feel the pillars, whereupon the house stands, that I may lean upon them. Now the house was full of men and women, and all of the lords of Palestinian were there, and there were upon the roof upon 3,000 men and women that held, while Shimshon made sport.
Okay. So keep key in there because this says it several times. They said they credit Dagon, their Elohim, with delivering Samson to them. Who delivered Samson to the Philistines?
Yeah.
That's what I think we should concentrate on there. This is a setup.
Mhm.
Now, one of the things, if you study archaeology, you'll find that they pretty much, what do they call it when they dig out the architecture of a city, of the Philistine city? Uh-huh.
Excavate.
Excavated. And they said, and they have found that they did have auditoriums that would hold 3,000 people. And they found that usually the main support structure was 2 pillars. This is exactly what archaeologists found in terms of digging out those 5 Philistine cities. And so, finish up with 28 and through 31. Somebody want to finish that up?
And Shimshon called on El Yahuwah and said, O Adonai Yahuwah, remember me, I pray you, and strengthen me, I pray you. Only this once, O Elohim, that I may be at once avenged by the Palestinians for my 2 eyes. And Shimshon took hold of the 2 middle pillars upon which the house stood, and on which it was borne up, of the one with his right hand, and the other with his left. And Shimshon said, let me die with the Palestinians. And he bowed himself with all his might, and the house fell upon the Lord, upon all the people that were therein. So the dead which he slew at his death were more than they which he slew in his life. Then his brethren and all of the house of his father came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Sisora and Estor, in the burying place of Manoach his father, and he judged Yashrael 20 years.
Okay, now I got a question.
Uh-oh.
Oh, come on. It's not a trick question. What brought Samson's strength back?
Yeah.
Right, and what did Samson do to evoke his strength?
Called on you.
We finally called on him.
Right, he actually, according to the books, according to Christendom, what you study in Christendom, what brought his strength back?
Hair.
Growing his hair back, right? That's the lesson they teach. Does this, wait a minute. What's that sound? That sounds like magic, right? If there was something magic about his hair.
I guess they're trying to go back to verse 22, where it says, "Howbeit the hair of his head began to grow again after he was shaved."
Right. They
So
take this verse along
Right.
and use and they hinge all of the Sunday school lessons I learned about Samson. It was that the fact that his hair grew back brought his strength back.
Which makes no sense, because if he had his strength then, he wouldn't have been made sport of that whole time before he prayed.
Right.
There was another part there that I kind of question along those lines in verse 28. He says, "O Yahuwah, let me take vengeance on the Philistines for my two eyes." Like, that's why he was given his power so he could take vengeance because of what they did to his eyes. But it wasn't for that. It was a judgment that Yah wanted to be done.
Well, he said, right, let's put both of them together though. Let's not separate them.
Okay.
Because first he had to pray. This is the prayer. He says, please remember me and please strengthen me just this one time. And let me take vengeance on the Philistines for my two eyes. I mean, he's blind. He's blind at that time. He couldn't even find the pillars without the little boy positioning him.
That little boy, he told that little boy what he was gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
When it said he said, suffer me that I may feel the pillars whereupon the house standeth, that I may lean upon them. That word there for lean, the Hebrew word is, what is it, shan. It means to destroy the watching lives. So he basically told the little boy, I'm gonna kill these folks.
I hope that little boy has sense enough to get out of there. So,
They knew Hebrew he was.
Do you think that he was talking about his two eyes? Is it kind of a reference to the fact that he finally understood what his purpose was? He could finally actually see, because he was physically blind, he could see.
that could be, yeah. Because one thing about blind people that any study will show, they think deeper and they have more sensitivity than people with eyes. But the mere fact that he calls on Yah, he realized that his strength did not come from his hair.
Right.
That's what he's saying. Strengthen me. He's saying to Yah to strengthen him.
But then also, Yah, would it be clarified that if we look throughout Scripture, we see that he's asking Yah, in a sense, I'm one of your offsprings.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I realize that, and people that went against one of Yah's offsprings, he's following Torah now, because Yah says, if you call on me, I will avenge you.
Right, that's right.
And so, yes, it's calling for the eyes, but he's calling from the eyes of one of Yah's chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And so Yah says, I will take the vengeance for you.
Right. That's right. And then if we jump to Revelation, what's going to happen?
Exactly that.
Because who's the Philistines in Revelation?
Anybody that's not following
Who's
Torah.
taking the mark of the beast and following the flag? And who's Samson in Revelation?
Mashiach.
Right. And see, he's already died though, so he doesn't have to die a second time.
Right.
Now he's just going to bring down the house. What I'd like to do, and we might go into next week on this because I think it's important. I'm trying to deal with, and I started it off this way. I put this up here. Ooh, I almost fell. The sovereignty. Oh, I hope this ain't no permanent marker.
No, that's an
That's
expo.
I don't know if I spelled it right. Remember when we started off, we was talking about Samson and how we deal with sovereign nothing Samson does surprises Yah,
This is his problem.
but Samson's exercise his free will. How do you reconcile those two? I want to look at it in the negative portion. Remember when we got Exodus 9:12, we're dealing with the Pharaoh, where it says, Yah hardened Pharaoh's heart, so he would not let the people go. That's also dealing with free will of the Pharaoh, sovereign will of Yah. How do you reconcile those? And I think the problem is if you look at the Hebrew, well, let's put it this way. I think it's a mistranslation. And check me out on it if you can later on.
Which verse? You saying mistranslation?
Well, I read the whole thing. The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart.
Exodus.
Hmm?
It's in Exodus.
In Exodus 3:12.
So and Yahuwah hardened the heart of Pharaoh.
I think the better translation would be Yahweh strengthened Pharaoh's will.
Hmm. And he argued not onto them.
And to get to that better translation, you gotta look at the Hebrew word for heart is lev. And the Hebrew word for hardened is, I don't know how to pronounce it, H-A-Z-A-Q.
Yeah, chazak, wow.
Is that how it goes?
That's the same word that's in Joshua 1:9, be bold, be strong.
Mhm.
Chazak, yeah.
Asa.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can translate that as
Wow,
the Lord strengthened Pharaoh's will.
yeah. Or emboldened.
In other words,
He emboldened him.
Here,
Emboldened.
Emboldened.
what's the definition of emboldened?
It's like
Made-
puffing his chest out, like,
Okay,
yeah.
sort of like the will,
Yeah.
you know?
He made him puffed up.
Right. In other words, Yahweh just have you do what you, even give you even more determination to do what you determined that you're gonna do,
Wow,
Wow.
right? So,
that's powerful.
he made his will so strong that he went through all 10 plagues,
Mm.
which was Yah's plan in the first place. Because number one, he wanted to make sure that when the Israelites were free, they could not take any credits for themselves whatsoever.
But the interesting thing is that Yah gave him the opportunity to get out of that. And
Right.
he refused.
Right.
Yeah.
And I maintain that goes on all the time. And it went on with Samson. And it goes on in every other story we read in the Torah, the Pentateuch, and the New Testament. Go ahead.
This is going back to Judges. The interesting part is though, in 25 and others, it talks about, and they made sport of him. And so that,
Right.
that Ivrit word is sokak, sokak, right? But we use this term sport all the time. And that word means generally to scorn, to mock, to laugh at. So when we look at our quote unquote current word, sport, people are sitting there, and it says to be entertained. It says put him out there. Another translation I see feels like put Samson out there so he can entertain us.
Right.
And they have an arena. And what do we have now? Our sports arena. And we have pillars that go up, and thousands of people watch the individuals so that they can be entertained. So they can make mockery
Of them.
of them. So they're paying them to be in this sense, modern times, depending on to be
Well,
foolish. in one
there's
sense.
nothing new under the sun.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to. There's nothing new under the sun.
We will be doing a synopsis today.
Oh,
Oh, you said you will be doing something. Is that what
Yeah.
you're gonna do it good. I've been trying to get you to do the synopsis.
So I'm not doing it. But I do know I could call on someone I think has a great voice, great way with words.
Oh, who you nominate?
Himself.
It's too small.
This young man,
It's too small for pencil.
Miguel.
Yeah.
I'll have to second that, because I think they were here told David. I seen him taking notes.
Oh,
I don't wanna see
You saw him taking notes. Can't do anything about that.
Yeah, I don't wanna say it's not.
I saw Gene taking that.
I got an excuse, I don't have a good memory, I can't even remember stuff.
So read your notes.
okay, Danny, you ready?
I think I saw Dale taking notes.
Okay, Gene, you
How about
you can enter us in prayer.
Dear Abba Yah, we thank you for this study. We hope that our hearts have been softened and we've been humbled to receive your Torah, that we may go forward with knowledge that will help us in our life, and that we profit from what has been said here. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Every chance I get, I'm trying to get rid of this magic we picked up from Christianity.
Hallelujah.